Any digital ad you see today is basically bought and sold programmatically. 50 years ago, if you wanted to find sports fans, you might place a buy on ESPN. Programmatic means that you're essentially able to place bids on inventory in real time. Today, you're able to reach those sports fans across the open internet, on social media platforms, basically any digital channel, without relying on that previous assumption that they only watch sports.
What are some of the biggest mistakes you think brands are making when it comes to measurement?
So there are campaigns where the outcome is really just to reach as many people as possible. But there are a ton of budgets being run that are not necessarily top of funnel, but the only thing that are being tracked are clicks. If you look at a click to a website, how much time is a person spending on a website after they've landed there? Was it an accidental click? So a lot of money is being spent on things that are vanity metrics that look good in a report, not really moving the needle in terms of like real business outcomes. As companies and advertisers get bigger, you look at like what the Fortune 500 are doing in terms of advertising. Those are the guys putting on those measurement solutions and trying to track every single dollar in terms of incrementality.
Where do you see the future of programmatic advertising looking for the next 3 to 5 years? So Stewart, billions of dollars is spent every year targeting audiences online, and most of the audience are built the same way they were a decade ago. In this episode, I want to break down what programmatic advertising is, how it works, and what outcomes it drives for companies. But before we get into that, I want to go back to the beginning. 9 years ago, you founded Drako. What was the initial idea and story?
Yeah, I mean, co-founded. Definitely don't want to take all the credit. 9 years ago, I was working at another company. I was running what they refer to in our industry as a trading desk. So basically, something akin to an ad agency, but no web design, no PR, no creative, no SEO or SEM. We really focused on programmatic campaign management and execution. And so I was running this this department within another company, and a gentleman reached out to me out of the blue on LinkedIn, asked me if I wanted to meet for coffee. Met him a couple times. He was in the market to start his own trading desk, essentially, and I was looking for someone to actually run the operation side of things. So I had experience doing that from my former company that I was working at. Decided to take the plunge. I believed in the ecosystem, the business model. I saw the growth that I saw from our department at my prior company. Took a leap of faith with him and then never looked back. So, that was May 2017 when we started. It'll be 9 years next month.
And for anyone listening who doesn't know what programmatic advertising is, or a trading desk,
Yeah.
what is that in simple terms?
I mean, any digital ad you see today is basically bought and sold programmatically. And a way to think about that would be, if you rewind 30, 40, 50 years ago and you wanted to place an ad buy, you would call up, let's say, a radio station, a TV station, a billboard company, make the buy, and then it would just appear where you're actually choosing to run it. Programmatic means that you're essentially able to place bids on inventory in real time. So to give you an example, 50 years ago, if you wanted to find sports fans, you might place a buy on ESPN because you're assuming that sports fans are watching ESPN. Today, you're able to reach those sports fans across the open internet, on social media platforms, across basically any digital channel, without relying on that previous assumption that they only watch sports, right? So buying or running a campaign programmatically would just mean you are now going out there and, let's say, targeting sports fans in Montreal, bidding against inventory on Spotify, inventory on Netflix, inventory on other digital channels, but you're competing against others doing the exact same thing. They might not be running a sports campaign, they might be running a retail-based campaign, but it's the same ad inventory you're bidding and competing for.
So essentially it allows you to target the right people a lot more effectively and gives you a lot more accuracy on who your ads are going to and towards.
Yeah, I would say, especially if you compare what it looked like a long time ago and how advertising worked, it first removes a lot of the assumptions that come from, I think this is my target market, this is the persona that I'm looking for, I have to reach them in a certain way. Yeah. It kind of breaks down that barrier. But it also, and even in the 9 years that we've run in the company, it allows for ease of access for someone to run a campaign, right? So platforms are easier to use today. They're less expensive to use. I would say programmatic as a whole has been kind of commoditized. The ability to run an ad campaign today is a lot easier than it was 9 years ago, a lot easier than it was 20 years ago. So the industry's ability to grant that ease of access, let's say, to anyone who wants to break into the advertising market has been great, but it also allows for better targeting. It allows for more efficient use of ad dollars. Obviously there's going to be waste, like in any ad campaign, any marketing initiative, but ultimately the goal of programmatic is to make the buying and selling of advertising more efficient, lead to better outcomes. And there's many different companies in the programmatic ecosystem on the supply side, on the demand side, that's obviously the two big factions there. But when it comes to curation and audience building and measurement and creative, there's many different facets of that ecosystem that are all kind of working together.
And before co-founding Drako, what got you into programmatic?
I studied marketing at Concordia. Did not touch programmatic or even digital ads at all. Actually, back then, and this would have been in 2011, 2012, digital advertising was an elective at marketing in Concordia. So it was on the horizon, but it wasn't really being taught even in school. And then I graduated, was looking for basically any job I could find. And I lucked into working at this company where there was a trading desk being built, or it was already existing, but they were starting to invest more and more into it. Right as the industry started booming, let's say. So the timing was great. And I learned pretty much everything I knew on the fly.
It's the best way.
Yeah, it didn't come from Concordia. It didn't come from a previous job. I started at this company, started managing campaigns, started managing client relationships, started taking sales calls, which I think is always a good way to learn the behind the scenes of a business model, let's say. And then it went from there. The department grew quite a bit while I was there. I kind of had a good vantage point of that it could be a successful company running by itself. Kind of had the idea like, if I had some money, I could actually start something like this myself, but unfortunately I didn't. And that's when my co-founder basically showed up out of the blue, prompted me with like, hey, do you want to try to do this? And it didn't take much of a push, let's say.
How did it feel taking the jump in that moment?
I was 26. I had a pretty well-paying job at the time, pretty secure job, good company. It still didn't feel like much of a risk. I was pretty optimistic that it was going to work out. My business partner obviously, brought the funding and the connections. I brought the operations and the experience. Within the first 7 months, we had broken even. And then, we never looked back. That was about start of 2018 or so. And then we started just kind of growing from there.
Has it all been smooth sailing, or have there been some peaks and valleys over that?
Definitely
time?
Peaks and valleys. Any company goes through peaks and valleys. When you start a company a couple of years before COVID, there's going to be a valley for sure. Ironically, when we started the company, we had dialed into a niche of and it kind of continued today, of location data and its purposes and applications in targeting and measurement. So when you're trying to sell campaign management or ideas that revolve around foot traffic during a pandemic, you're going to have a tough time. So that was definitely an interesting year. What we did though is right around when COVID started, which is when our CTO and a current business partner joined the company, we started investing into our own database and our own tools and solutions. So up until that point, we were service-based. We were relying on other platforms, other solutions made by others that didn't quite satisfy what we were trying to sell to our clients. This company too is still today self-funded. Everything we've done internally, exactly. We've bootstrapped ourselves, never taken any funding there, but we've been able to build out essentially a tech company from what was originally a service-based company. So now if you look at our competitive landscape, let's say today, and our competitors that we're competing against, for lack of a better word there, on the data side of the company, they are all funded. They are all much larger than we are, and we're still neck and neck with some companies that are 10, 20 times our size.
What advantage do you think being bootstrapped has given to you guys?
One disadvantage is definitely speed to market, right? So we're relying on ourselves to pay our own bills, but also invest in R&D. It's step by step and iterative. One advantage though is that you can be very flexible, right? You can test very quickly. You can try things very quickly. You can fail very quickly and move on. That's something that we've tried to have a mindset of. I don't think we're always successful there, and there's always obviously work to be done, but we're experimenting things. We're with things that let's say before we had the tech side of the company, we'd be using platforms. And one good example is we're based in Montreal, right? So we have a lot of business here in Canada. A lot of the platforms we use are US based. A lot of those solutions that exist in the US don't exist in Canada. Generally, these platforms just see Canada as a smaller market. It's not worth investing into. So right away, we built our solution with a Canada, maybe not first, but Canada, US first mindset. So that allowed us to come back to the Canadian market and say, well, all these platforms that can't service the Canadian market, we can't, right? And so by being able to build things ourselves, we're able to focus on what our customers on the service side of the company are asking for. A lot of our tech competitors don't have that dichotomy where you have the service side of the company managing campaigns, solving and identifying pain points from campaign management. We're taking those into account when building out our products, where a lot of our competitors are just building products for their tech customers.
For them, there's a lot of guesswork, whereas you guys are building the ship from the inside, so you have all the data.
Yeah, I would imagine there's some guesswork in what they're doing, and some things that are proved out as well. A lot of our competitors on the data side are quite big. They've been very successful for a long time. We're going up against a lot of incumbents there. But we do have that feedback loop. So we are managing campaigns for ad agencies using both our data and others, using our targeting and measurement solutions and others' solutions as well. We're seeing what gaps are not being bridged by these other companies and problems that we ourselves encountered with these solutions. And then that guided us to, we can try to build it this way. And that's kind of been our mentality since we started.
Let's say I'm new to Drako. How would you explain what Drako is and what you guys do to a newcomer?
Yeah, I would refer to us today as a programmatic partner. We've kind of gone through different iterations of our positioning and how we frame ourselves to an ad agency or an ad platform. I think at the onset, ad agency was a good catch-all, especially for someone who doesn't know what a trade and guess would be. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, once you start adding a suite of tech and measurement solutions, you're no longer just a service-based company. A trading desk doesn't seem to fit. So for a few years, right as we entered the data market, we tried to position ourselves as a location data company, because ultimately the backbone of what we're doing is based on location data, consented location data. So where our cell phones have been, visit history, home and work location models, et cetera. That also didn't seem to fit, where we're doing more than just running location database campaigns. We're building out services and products that are now tangential to location data. That led us to our current position now, where I would refer to us as a programmatic partner holistically. So we are able to service ad agencies with campaign management, with audience and measurement solutions, or campaign planning and analytic solutions, let's say, independently or as a package.
And one important question that I missed earlier on when we were talking about the early days is where did the name Drako come from?
Oh, yeah. My co-founder, Laurent, when we started the company in 2017, his daughter would have been about 13. Yeah. She's a big Harry Potter fan. So when we were going back and forth and, getting the paperwork done, let's say, before starting the company, and, we're getting into business with each other as strangers, basically. So we wanted to make sure that we both had kind of security and were protected. The company name wasn't really the biggest thing on my mind. So he suggested it kind of as a nod to his daughter, and it stuck. Obviously, in Harry Potter, you got Draco with the C, so we did change it to a K, but it's stuck ever since. And over the years, we shortened it just to Draco, just to kind of better signify what kind of company we are today versus a media group, which could be maybe misconstrued.
I wonder if have you ever run a campaign with Draco Malfoy?
No, unfortunately not. No, I'm trying to think of the closest thing we've got into Harry Potter. We've done campaigns for Lego, which I guess is close, but no, we we never even considered changing the name either. I'm just kind of stuck.
I like it. Drako has 3 pillars, so analytics, media, measurement. Mm-hmm. I'd like to walk through what each one of those means and how it works from the inside. So maybe starting off with data, of course, because that is what drives everything. How do you see data? Yeah,
when we kind of broke out our company into 3 departments, data, media, and analytics, the mindset there was when you're running any kind of campaign, could be programmatic, could be traditional, you're going to kind of go through 3 phases where you're doing the pre-campaign planning and audience building or persona building. You're doing the actual execution of the campaign. You're running it. And then you're analyzing, you're measuring to see what happened, what worked, what didn't. So we then structured our company from Drako Media Group into Drako Data, which builds audiences, customized audience solutions, measurement, kind of the power behind what we do internally, allowing us to build out campaigns that others would not be able to, let's say. But we also service companies that are running their own campaigns. So originally, when we had just the service team, if we met an agency, like let's say Midnight Marketing, and you guys were running your own paid media, you would never have a use for our team because you never would outsource, right? You'd keep everything internal, which in Canada anyway, a lot of the larger agencies do that. In the US, they tend to outsource a bit more. But our mindset was, well, if we want to work with the big guys, we got to give them a reason to do so, right? So we built out this data department where now we're selling audiences directly to an agency or an advertiser that runs their own campaigns. So they have no need for that outsourced management. We're still able to power and provide them with better targeting solutions, let's say, broadly. Then you have that Drako Media portion, the activation portion, which still exists. It's how the company started. It still exists as a department today. That's where we activate, essentially. So I would say about 95% of the campaigns we run today are powered by our data. There are still examples of, if you want to try to run a campaign targeting a specific list of websites that has nothing to do with location data. It's just, it's more inventory based. However, everything that we manage internally is run through Drako Media. So we don't outsource any campaign management or anything like that. And then there's that analytics arm, right? So that's the newest arm, I would say, but also the most interesting because it doesn't necessarily pertain to advertising. We can obviously fold into measurement into analytics, which is kind of an easy tie in there. So for example, you could run a campaign for McDonald's. We could be targeting Burger King visitors, let's say, or fast food competitor visitors. We could be running that campaign on Spotify. So we're building out that audience. We're running that campaign through Drako Media. And then we can measure, hey, anyone who saw or listened to an ad in this case, did they come back into McDonald's? That's measurable and trackable. But we also have that analytics arm that we're running analyses for, completely non-advertising related use cases. One example recently, we are looking at tourism boards, and this is now worldwide because as of a year and a half ago, we expanded from Canada, US data to data in about 150 different countries.
Wow.
We're looking at tourism boards of specific cities. Where is their traffic coming from? We've done movement analysis for the University of Edinburgh. There's a lot of different use cases when you're sitting on the amount of data that we have. It doesn't have to necessarily be activated programmatically or through an advertising channel. We could be looking at traffic patterns, right? We've done an analysis for the city of Montreal actually doing so. So
how does that work?
Oh, we're just able to analyze if you picture where your phone travels with you in a day, a lot of people overestimate the amount of data per phone that we would get or per person. You hear concerns about location data. Am I being tracked? Am I being followed? The reality is it's almost impossible to do that. When we're collecting data per person, we're looking at a handful of data signals per day, right? So in terms of that customer journey, like can we follow someone from waking up in the morning, going to the dog park, going to the gym, going to work, going to the grocery store after work, and then going home? We're very unlikely to pick up all those signals, right? So we're not actually tracking a person's journey, let's say, during a day or behavior like that. On the advertising side of things, we're basically aggregating data together to say, well, these are all the signals we saw from a dog park. Those are very likely dog owners, right? But in terms of the movement and traffic patterns, well, we have a home location model, a work location model. So we can actually see average distance traveled, let's say in Montreal, between someone's home location and work location on a Monday to Friday basis. There's ideas of like, where would you put a new metro? We can analyze how far people are traveling from their home location to the closest metro station. We actually just submitted a proposal to an agency that runs campaigns for the Go stations in Toronto for something similar, looking at how far are people living from the Go stations, how far do they have to travel to get there. It's when you're sitting on the data that we have, which is about 25 billion data points a day that we process. There's a lot we could do with it, and right now one of our challenges is we don't really know. We don't know. So who could we be selling an analysis to? What could we be analyzing that we're not today? There's a lot of endless possibilities there.
And how are audiences typically built today?
I mean, if you're talking audiences broadly in a number of different ways, right? So if you go throughout your day and you see any kind of digital ad you see online, and you keep track of those ads and just kind of note what kind of advertising is being served to you, could be based on your online website history, behavior, etc. Could be based on websites you visit, the keywords on those websites in the content. Could be based on your physical visit somewhere, which is what we do mostly. It could be based on you sharing Wi-Fi with someone who's searching for something else, right? There's lots of different ways to target someone today. Our backbone is based on cell phone visit history, basically. So what we're doing there is, in that dog park example, we're grabbing, let's say, across Canada, all the phones that we saw at a dog park in the last 3 months. We're not picking up anyone's name or phone number or email. It's really just a lat long timestamp and a device ID. And then we're taking all those signals and then aggregating them together to make that dog park visitor or dog owner audience.
Interesting. And so the three different arms of Drako, data, media, analytics, they all work together for a campaign.
They would all work together for our clients, but they're also accessed individually, or could be accessed individually as well. So we've run, for example, an analysis for an agency of a partner of ours for their Toyota client. What we did there, we didn't run any campaign, and we didn't send them an audience to run either. What we did is looked across Canada and measured essentially in each individual FSA that a Toyota dealership existed. Are the residents going to that dealership or their competitors' dealerships more or less often? Basically to inform them, okay, you're running a Canada-wide campaign. You're spending money pretty much evenly across the country. You shouldn't be doing that. You're spending too much money in markets where you're already winning market share. You don't need to go competitively conquest and try to win more. And you're not spending enough in FSAs where you're losing traffic to your competitors. We didn't run the campaign. We didn't build audiences. We provided the analysis there. So generally, we would work with a partner and use all three. We'd build out the audiences for a campaign from scratch. We'd run the campaign. We'd report back on it. But they can be accessed and used individually.
And what was the outcome of that campaign for Toyota? What did that unlock for them?
What allowed them, I believe we have the case study on our website, but it allowed them to unlock and essentially bid multiply. In layman's terms, they didn't look at Canada as a single geo target. They broke it down by FSA and adjusted their bid on how aggressive they wanted to be in advertising in those geos, up or down based on the analysis. So it allowed them to spend more in areas where they should be spending more and vice versa. I believe it ended up reducing their cost per visit and their overall CPM as well. So there was more areas where they were able to lower their bid and they were wasting money versus areas where they should have been bidding up higher in that specific example. But there's if I just think about the last few months of analyses that we've done, we helped a client in Washington State run a billboard campaign. In this case, we actually ran the billboard campain ourselves, a digital out of home campaign. But essentially they had a question or a problem rather. I have 9 different language speakers that I want to target within Washington State. 1, how much budget do I assign to each? And 2, where do I place the actual venues? So what we did is we have the US Census ingested. So we looked at where are those language speakers living, what census tracts, and then based on the size of the budget, we allocated a certain percentage per language, and that allowed us to also inform the client, all right, these are the zip codes in this case where those language specific billboards should be placed because that's where the target lives. And that's based on census data.
It's interesting because a lot of times you think of a billboard campaign, there's just a lot of guesswork involved and
Yeah.
you have no idea of how the campaign performed and what results it drove, but there are definitely ways you can track it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's lots of companies out there that are doing really impressive stuff with measuring attention on billboard campaigns, but also attribution. I think historically it's, let's put a billboard up beside a highway and hope for the best. What we've done as well, for example, for Capital One, in this case, we didn't run the billboard campaign, but we grabbed any device that was exposed to one of those billboards during their campaign. We mapped that back to their home location using our home location model, mapped the device ID to an IP, and then mapped the IP to a web visit. So we actually were able to track like the campaign, the billboard campaign itself lead to an increase in web traffic, which obviously a billboard is not clickable. So that's something a little more cutting edge, but it is possible, right? So that's where that measurement and outcomes and analytics piece comes in. It's not just tracking, oh yeah, we delivered this here. We ran a billboard campaign for a month and a half. This was your estimated reach. There are additional things you could add there where you typically wouldn't think of, and it's a little more outside the box.
Do you think a lot of brands are missing out on this because they don't understand the level to which you can track for out-of-home campaigns and ads and advertising in general?
I think on the measurement piece, if you look at what the largest advertisers in the world are doing, they're definitely aware of this kind of stuff. There's a lot of money being spent, so there's definitely a more finer tuned focus on the outcome of those campaigns. But there's a tremendous amount of money being spent on advertising where an advertiser is looking at a report and seeing a number of clicks at the end of a campaign or a reach report. So there are certain things that you could be running, budget permitting, obviously, sample size permitting, let's say a market share analysis or a geo lift. To go back to that McDonald's example, all right, so you served ads to Burger King visitors in Montreal, let's say. You want to see if people are coming back into McDonald's. That's doable today. It's not too cutting edge. You want to find out if the campaign actually drove incremental lift. Maybe you're serving ads to people that were going to go to McDonald's anyway. So that's possible as well. That's a little more advanced, let's say. It requires a little more detail when it comes to setting up the campaign. But then if you want to go further, and this is something that we're working on as well, all right, so you can track the number of visits back to McDonald's locations. You can track if there's an incremental lift, but did you drive an increase in market share away from competitors as well? So in that example, you might have served an ad to someone who's already going to McDonald's. You might not have, and you might have driven a visit to McDonald's, but did you take it away from Subway or an A&W?
A lot of this is on the direct to consumer side, but let's say I'm a B2B company running a trade show.
Yep.
How would I use geo-fenced ads to target the right people, and how does your model work with B2B rather than D2C?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of work in B2B. We have an ability to identify an employee, a resident or a visitor in any kind of geolocation. Could be a building, a conference, could be a zip code. What we do there is we'll actually go back in time often. So let's say we have a conference coming up, possible in Miami at the end of the month. So we can go back and find visitors to the last conference, 2025, 2024, 2023. Most companies don't have that look back data. We can go back as far as 2019. Most people have changed their phones since 2019. So, you're not going to be able to actually grab a phone that was at a conference 6 years ago and activate on it. It's going to be lost. You can't match that back to a platform because it's not in use anymore. What you can do though is, for analyses, you can use those. In this case though, we'd go find visitors to past conferences if we're trying to advertise and promote a future conference. We can also associate anyone who goes to a conference or any location back to their work location because of our work location model. So basically, I want to find visitors to 2025, possible 2025. I want to tag every phone back to their work location. And essentially what you're doing there is you're identifying companies that have attended possible and not just people. And now you have an audience of people, of companies or employees of those companies that can be leveraged for recruitment, could be leveraged for any kind of B2B campaign. So often for B2B, generally our focus is on recruitment or events.
And typically, in general, I know this varies a lot, but like, how would you measure whether a campaign worked, and what are the signals that you're looking at for your campaigns on the measurement analytics side?
I mean, it really depends on the type of campaign, right? So for a recruitment campaign, it's generally a form completion. Are you driving the right person to a job applications page, right? When it comes to online results, those are more typical. So clicks, impressions, reach, frequency, ROAS for revenue based campaigns or anything e-commerce. Then you have any kind of action that would be taken on a website. So form completion, download, a brochure, etc. Then on the flip side of things, and this is where our focus comes in, with location data, we're often focused on real world outcomes. So did we drive that incremental lift? Did we drive people back into a car dealership? Did we drive people to a particular city if we're running a campaign for a tourism board? That's trackable as well. For example, we work with Destination Cleveland, and we've done campaigns where we're actually tracking incremental lift back to the city of Cleveland as a whole. Because often for those campaigns, you're not tracking the advertiser, in this case, the tourism board, doesn't have insight onto every hotel booking or everyone coming into the city. Then there's also people that, work 30 minutes outside of Cleveland and might be coming in and out every day. That would be tracked as a visit, right? We have the ability to remove that kind of noise. For
a listener who doesn't know what incremental lift is, how would you define what is in simple terms?
Yeah, I think a lot of attribution today in any kind of ad campaign, location database or not, you're going to be targeting people that may have converted anyway, right? So you're going to be spending money on people that would have bought your product or service regardless. So incremental lift is really to separate people that are receiving the ads, people that are not, and tracking, is there a lift in between that control group and the one that's receiving the ads? Is there an added value, or is there I'm losing my words here. Is there a way for us to track, did that campaign actually drive someone to purchase something or subscribe to a service they wouldn't have?
Yeah.
Versus doing it anyway. So, if you run a campaign, even an e-commerce campaign, ROAS has, been thought of for that's the important metric, right? Well, if you're running a campaign and getting a 300% ROAS, you might just be hitting people that were purchasing anyway, right? It's a number that looks great on a report, but ultimately, if you're wasting 75% of your budget on people that are going to buy regardless, it's a complete waste of money, right? So that, I think incrementality is not quite a buzzword, but it's a focus of more and more companies as the technology gets better, just because we have ways to track, oh, this person would have come anyway, versus this is a net new customer. This is someone who was actually influenced by an ad campaign.
What are some of the biggest mistakes you think brands are making when it comes to measurement?
I think there's a whole bunch of them. One is a lot of campaigns, like I mentioned before, a lot of dollars are being spent on things that are just not being tracked at all. So it's not even a mistake of tracking the wrong thing. It's, there's a lot of branding or top of funnel campaigns. You're running a campaign for maybe an election. Or for example, we ran a ton of work for Washington State during COVID for like vaccine awareness. So there are campaigns where the outcome is really just, I want to reach as many people as possible. In that case, measurement really isn't an issue, but there are a ton of budgets being run that are not necessarily top of funnel, but the only thing that are being tracked are clicks, right? And then from that, not all clicks are equal. If you look at a click to a website, how much time is a person spending on a website after they've landed there? Was it an accidental click? So a lot of money is being spent on things that look, let's say, that are vanity metrics that look good in a report, but not really moving the needle in terms of like real business outcomes. Then I think as budgets get bigger, as companies and advertisers get bigger, if you look at like what the Fortune 500 are doing in terms of advertising, those are the guys putting on those measurement solutions and trying to track every single dollar in terms of incrementality and whatnot.
I think there's a lot of guesswork when it comes to marketing and brand marketing especially. So I'd say the Achilles heel of most marketers is measurement and being able to prove ROI, especially when you're in a meeting with a CFO or CMO. Like, are you really delivering value? Where do you see the future of programmatic advertising looking for the next 3 to 5 years?
If you look at the progression of programmatic over the last decade or so, it's largely been every channel. So, starting from just regular display banners you see online, video, audio, CTV, connected TV. Now it's digital billboards. Like everything is being now bought programmatically. This is obviously very, very new, but now, ads through ChatGPT, like that's available programmatically, right? So I think anytime there's a new advertising medium, there will be a way to purchase it and run those campaigns programmatically. I do think there's a lot of pressure and a lot of noise being made today about transparency. So, if you take a $10,000 ad budget that an advertiser has, and it goes through an ad agency and then a trading desk and then a DSP, who's taking what in terms of fees, right? Where is that money actually going? I think the trade desk, for example, one of our bigger partners, has been in a bit of hot water recently about being audited by holdcos and their partners, where about non-transparent fees, let's say. I think more and more companies are going to be aware of that and flag that and want to see a better breakdown of fees versus media versus data. There's a lot of companies that do a really good job of that. A lot of companies benefit by not doing it. So I think that's maybe not 3 to 5 years from now, but I think the progression is going to be better transparency, not just in that reporting outcome, but also where is my money being spent.
You mentioned ChatGPT ads, and that's AI is obviously a huge thing driving what's happening in the future. How do you see the future with AI and programmatic panning out?
I think there's a few different ways to answer that. I think from a media buying perspective, right? So running a campaign, if you strip away a lot of that noise, it's really just data entry, right? If you look at what you're plugging into a platform, obviously there's nuance there, there's experience, there's knowing what's worked in the past and what's not, but you can collect all that and it's available. Exactly. It's precedence. It's information that, a company that's leveraging these tools will already have. I think a lot of the media buying process, a lot of these larger trading desks, larger ad agencies are already automating it, going from receiving a brief or sending a brief all the way to campaign execution. That's being automated. The focus then is on maintaining the client relationship, educating the client. The actual optimization and campaign management part is and already is going to be automated. In terms of how we're looking at it, for audience building, for example, or measurement, one unique thing that we bring to the table is that we're able to actually score every ID, every phone, every device inside any given audience. So if we're looking at, again, McDonald's visitor over the last 30 days across Canada, not every device in that audience is equal in theory. You have people that are going daily. You have people that went once 29 days ago, right? You have employees in there as well. So we're actually scoring every ID, and that forms the basis of how we build out audiences for a campaign. Is we're treating everything from scratch, basically, based on a client's budget and scope of a campaign. So we're using AI-powered tools to do that as well, that ID-based scoring and ranking. Whereas 5 years ago, it was, I'm going to grab that McDonald's visitor audience off the shelf, plug it into a campaign, call it a day. I think it leads to better efficiencies in terms of less waste, better outcomes from a campaign.
And what would you say is the human element that can't be replaced with automation and AI?
A lot of the data entry part of it is going to be automated. It's already being automated, but I think it's maintaining the client relationships, maintaining client expectations, right, or managing them. I think with all these advances with AI, we're going to see a big push back to real world events.
Analog.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
While simultaneously having better tools to run better campaigns, to manage people more efficiently. It's being applied across every industry, right? Not just programmatic advertising, but what we're seeing wins already is just cutting down on mundane tasks, let's say, to give better focus to our clients. And in terms of actual ads with AI, let's say, I think there's two ways to look at it. One is, you're already seeing it, but you're going to start getting ads within your responses, right? You can also leverage, or companies are now leveraging the data that people are putting into ChatGPT and Claude and whatnot, and using it as like search behavior. So that data is being bought, and now you can, let's say, target people with a Spotify campaign based on their ChatGPT search history, not individually, but at scale. So that's another example of a medium. The second it stops being subsidized, it's ads show up, right? We saw it with Netflix, we saw it with Spotify. There's ads on Uber now, right? Those are also being bought and sold programmatically. It's just one of those use cases where I think AI is going to remove a lot of the day-to-day mundane tasks from most jobs. allowing for better client management or better client relationships.
And as well, the way that we use these tools, like people would in the past search for something on Google, but now a lot of search is coming from AI.
Yeah.
So of course, ads are going to map user behavior. And when something's searching for something on ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, there's an opportunity there for advertisers to take advantage of that or like rank first.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And there's something somebody said too. Like if you imagine you a couple of years ago, you went to Google and searched something, you're going to a website, right? There's ad space on that website. Now with ChatGPT and Claude and all these tools, you're searching for something, the answer's right there. There's no website visit. So sites are going to get less traffic. Ads are going to be more expensive on those sites. Then simultaneously, you're going to start seeing ads on these platforms. So I think it's just, if you go back 10 years ago, it would have been hard to imagine right before, let's say, all these AI advancements, where ads would have been, right? Running a Netflix campaign 10 years ago seemed like a crazy idea. Now it's pretty commonplace. Netflix ad campaign, rather. Same with Spotify, right? I think I probably downloaded Spotify 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I think I've had the paid version ever since, but now you're seeing ads on podcasts, even on the paid version, right? So it's tough to predict the future, especially in our industry, which moves very, very quickly. I do think, though, that AI is going to be a force multiplier, especially in a company like ours where we're a little bit smaller. We're not looking to like, oh, let's cut an entire team and have an agent do it in its place. Everyone just becomes a little bit more effective.
Yeah. And on the marketing side for Drako, obviously you run campaigns for clients, but how do you see marketing yourself and telling your story to get more customers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a good tie into the podcast that we're planning on. It's something that historically we haven't invested a ton into, right? So I think we have run ads before just because we have direct access to these platforms. A lot of our outbound and where a lot of our leads are generated are from cold outbound. Now today we're looking at PR, we're looking at a podcast, we're looking at sponsorships, right? So as we get a bit bigger, that allows more opportunity to invest in, more arms of marketing, let's say. Up until this point, though, we've kind of dabbled with it. We've grown quite a bit just with organic growth, sales, and then on the data and analytics side, it's really just been adoption.
So what's the goal with the podcast and what's the name?
I think we've settled on a name, first impressions. I think the goal is really high level, right? We don't expect it to be a big revenue driver or lead driver. It's really to get our name a bit more out there. I hate to use the word thought leadership because I think everyone's a thought leader today, and if everyone is, then no one is. But ultimately, just to, we have a few stances we want to take about audience building or outcomes or, the way campaigns should be managed, where maybe a bit of it goes against the grain, and we want to be a bit more vocal about those stances and those positions. I think a podcast is a great way to do that, while also having people on that have their own viewpoints and, own takes on things.
I think as well, it's a great way to humanize the brand, and a lot of advertising, especially now with AI, it doesn't feel very human, and a lot of stuff just gets lost in the noise and the shuffle. You see so many ads and stuff that don't really feel genuine, but when you watch someone talk and listen to their ideas, it's a lot more natural to listen to that and be able to understand how the company thinks, as well as build a culture internally. So I think there's a lot of benefits for starting a podcast. I might have some bias here, but no, I'm super excited to see first impressions come to life.
Yeah, us too. It's obviously a pilot test for us, and not really sure what to expect, but still very sold on the idea and the execution behind it.
And what does the future look like for Drako beyond the podcast and the future of Programmatic?
Well, we have a few projects internally that we're working on that are a bit larger scale. But if you imagine and go back to those 3 flames on the logo, we really want to invest equally into media, data, and analytics, right? So being able to serve those larger agencies and advertisers with audience and measurement solutions, with pre-campaign planning, post-campaign measurement, but do that separately while still being able to activate our own campaigns for our own clients. We on a larger scale, let's say, we're looking at different data sources to invest into. different tools to build. We're still a relatively small team, all things considered, right? So it's easier to go quicker when you're small, especially compared to a lot of our competitors, which are quite larger. But really, I think, just to touch on what we would like to do, if you imagine the concept of an audience, right? It's we'll use that McDonald's visitor example again. You're either in the audience or you're not. It's binary, right? And we have a very strong belief that doesn't really make any sense. And it's ironic because we build audiences and we leverage tools to build audiences and run campaigns against audiences. But our view of the future of programmatic is that the concept of an audience actually ceases to exist, right? So if you're looking at running a campaign, let's say in Montreal, and you were going to target McDonald's visitor because you're Burger King, you're not only interested in someone going to McDonald's, you're interested in them going to other competitors or someone who's a net new customer to fast food. In reality, your target is way bigger than you're assuming it to be. And if you are able to individually score and rank everyone within a given geo or given area, we have a strong belief that allowing an advertiser to do that would lead to tremendously better outcomes, because you're not just saying, well, I'm interested in targeting this audience or I'm not. And within that audience, everyone is scored equally today. Within that segment, it's one homogenous glob of people, let's say. And like the earlier example, in that segment, you're treating someone who went to McDonald's one time and someone who went to McDonald's 15 times the same. They're being bid on, to go back to the programmatic example earlier, the exact same way. So if we were able to deconstruct that, and that's kind of our vision for programmatic as a whole, is that, the way audiences are bought and sold today is the same as it was 15 years ago. And for us, that doesn't make any sense, really. We do believe there's better options out there, ones that we're creating ourselves. But ultimately, that in our eyes is the future of programmatic, is the ability to really individually target. And then, with AI, it's individually personalized. So, you're sending individual personalized messages and ads to people that have different behaviors instead of one ad set to one big audience.
And you're just totally removing all the guesswork. So brands that are investing huge budgets and money into ads, they're not guessing where the dollars are washing away.
I think it removes some of the guesswork, but it also ties outcomes to investment way clearer, right? If you imagine an advertiser would be more willing to pay a higher price for a better outcome and a lower price for a lesser outcome versus not pay and not get an outcome at all. So we're removing that binary toggle where it's, historically, do I want to run the campaign against a yes or no based audience? And it leads to outcomes versus, oh, I'm willing to pay X for this one and Y for this one. I think if we can do that while being transparent with what's leading to what, it's a huge win.
And last off, Stewart, what piece of advice would you give to yourself back 9-10 years ago when you were first starting Drako as a young mid-20-year-old to now where you are today?
I'd say, to echo your point earlier, there's going to be peaks and valleys. It's enjoy the ride. It's usually better than the destination.
Yeah.
We're certainly, we're enjoying running the company. We have a great team. It's something that it's a privilege, right? To be your own boss, kind of make the call on what happens within a company and what you do day to day. But, certainly as a business owner too, there are going to be times that are stressful. There are going to be periods that are stressful. I think, if I went back 10 years ago and said, hey, heads up, there might be some challenges ahead, but it will be worth it and is going to be worth it. It's probably the advice I give myself.
I think there's so many valuable lessons for any marketer out there. Just me absorbing all this as a marketer, the wheels in my brain are turning very fast. So a lot of great lessons from this conversation. Where can people find more about yourself, Stewart, and more about Drako?
Oh, we like our website, we're in the process of kind of tinkering with it a little bit, but our goal here is to, with the podcast, with PR, with a bigger presence in the market, just to kind of educate clients and prospects what we do on a better level. I think historically too, if you think of, going back to location data and how it's applied and its use cases, a lot of people think, geofencing, I'm going to target people that are walking into a radius around a car dealership.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we're trying to break out of that pigeonhole because there's so many more use cases like, traffic patterns, like we mentioned, or leveraging census data to target people demographically. So, I mean, our hope here is that we are starting to be more and more present in the industry, and it's not as hard to find us.
Any final message to the audience?
No, not really. I mean, thanks for having me. It's a good time. I think it's a good precursor to having our own podcast. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see the podcast. Appreciate the conversation.
Thanks.
Cheers.